Hi, hello. My name is Ben, and welcome to the first episode of Little Dead Aliens. I will be your host. So, just to give a quick breakdown of what this show is going to be, basically, what I'll be doing is watching through the Monster of the Week episodes of The X Files, and I will be giving horror movie recommendations based on the themes, tropes, styles, and vibes of that episode. So, just want to make it clear that this is not really going to be a X-Files recap show. It's not going to be one of those shows where we kind of go through and beat by beat talk about an episode. Instead, I really wanted it to be about giving recommendations for horror movies that are similar to the X-Files episodes. Before I get into the recommendations and the episode, I just wanted to also say that I am part of the Glitterjaw Queer podcasting collective. I'm really excited and happy to have joined them. They've been really supportive and awesome. So if you like their shows, hopefully you'll enjoy this one as well. And hopefully, and if you're just coming here, and if you're just listening to this out of the blue, definitely go to the Glitterjaw site. It's just glitterjaw.com and check out all the different shows there. And let's get into it.
Two FBI agents assigned to the same cases for different reasons.
No explainable cause of death.
Do you have a theory?
You believe in the existence of extraterrestrials.
One a skeptic, one a believer. Both trying to answer questions that were never meant to be uncovered.
I think those kids have been abducted.
By who?
By what? Seal this up. Nobody sees or touches this.
Distinguishing features indicate subject is not human.
You've got to trust me.
I gotta know what they're protecting.
Hold it right there.
Between reality and fantasy.
You've got to protect me.
Terror and reason.
Mulder, what are they?
Trust and betrayal.
The X-rays and pictures!
Lie the chilling secrets
Mulder, is that you? Mulder?
of the X-Files.
Agent Mulder, what are his thoughts?
Agent Mulder believes we are not alone.
The X-Files, a new dramatic series premiering Friday, September 10th on Fox.
So I do want to give a quick recap of this episode. This one we'll be looking at the pilot episode, which is a little different than most of the others in the series. As I mentioned before, I am doing the Monster of the Week episodes. And just to clarify, the X-Files is most of the episodes are pretty much broken up into two categories. Monster of the Week, which is a single case that they are investigating that is sort of resolved by the end of the episode, or a episode that progresses the overarching plot of the X-Files, which is kind of insane and gets a little convoluted throughout this show, but most of the episodes do one or the other. The pilot episode kind of has to do both because it needs to set up the narrative of the overarching plot, and it also has to be a standalone episode that you can watch and enjoy on its own. So it does both, and I think it does both successfully. But because it's doing both, there's a lot going on. So every time I try to give a good summation of what happens in the episode, it feels like I am all over the place and it doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to try to make as much sense of it as possible. Basically, we start the episode with a girl running through the woods, and then we see a figure pick her up. We see bright lights, and we get the impression that this is, an alien abduction. We then switch to Scully in the office of the FBI headquarters, and she is being told that she is being sent to work with Fox Mulder, who is known as Spooky Mulder, and he is in charge of the X-Files, and she is basically being tasked to sort of report on him as a means to debunk the X-Files and put an end to them. So she goes downstairs, she meets Mulder, he tells her about these cases in Oregon where teens have died and there's no real cause of death that they understand. So they go to Oregon in this small town, and there is a coroner who has done all of the autopsies and reports on the dead teens, and they're all been sort of whitewashed so that there's no real cause of death known or anything. And there's a sheriff who has been helping him. We learn throughout the episode that these two guys are basically covering up everything that's happening. And the reason that they're covering it up is because both of their children are involved and have been abducted at some point. One of their child, he is in a coma, but throughout the episode, we learn that he has been waking up from the coma and being used by the aliens to track down and take the other kids to the aliens. Like I said, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but basically by the end, Mulder is convinced that the kids have been abducted and that's what's happening to them based on marks on their bodies and different things. So what we're seeing happen in the episode is basically these kids are being abducted, and then the ones that are returned have been helping to have the other teens killed and abducted. Two of the teens' parents are authority figures who have been covering up these murders or deaths, whatever it is. Mulder and Scully also exhume one of the bodies of the teens, and in the coffin is what looks to be like a little dead alien. Mulder is very convinced that it is an alien. Scully, of course, is not convinced and says it looks to be some kind of primate. They do find something in the nose of the little dead alien that will come into play later and throughout the series as a signifier that someone has been abducted. All right, so let's get into the recommendations. So first, I just want to talk about some themes that I see in the show. One that stands out the most to me is like the idea of mistrust of authority or authority figures that are supposed to be a moral standard but are actually in the wrong or bad. The sheriff and the doctor in this case both feel like they're doing the right thing, and they feel that everyone should just do and go along with what they want because they're sort of the authority figures. But if they had not been as secretive and more willing to talk about what was going on and talk about with their kids what was going on, they probably would have lost fewer of these teens. This is a really interesting thing to me, and I think we see it come up quite a bit in horror. The genre sort of likes to do that twist of like who's supposed to be good is actually bad. One movie that I thought fit this really well it's called Population 436. It's from the year 2006, and it's about a census taker who goes to a small town because the population has been 436 people for over 100 years, and finally he's sent to investigate to figure out why that's the case, because it obviously must be some kind of mistake. Through his investigation, he finds out that, there's a creepy stuff going on in the town. I don't want to give anything away, but it does have Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit as a sheriff, which is kind of crazy. Jeremy Sisto is in it. This one might be best to watch like with other people, like in a group of people, because you can't really take it too seriously. It's not super great, but yeah. Another one that really fits this theme is Disturbing Behavior from 1998. I'm hesitant to recommend this movie. It is very much like the people who are in authority are taking advantage of these teens, and it's not a great movie. It's not super scary, but it does fit this theme really well. There is an instance where they go to like an insane asylum, and they kind of do that trope that I really hate in horror of like people acting crazy in the asylum, and they're creepy and scary just because they're in an asylum. And I don't think that's a really great portrayal of like mental health issues, but if you can look past that, Disturbing Behavior is a pretty good watch. Next, for this theme, I think The Ranger from 2018 is pretty good for this too. This is about a group of kids. I think they're in a punk band or they're just punks. Anyways, they do some kind of robbery, and then to get away, they go to one of theirs like family members' cabins out in the woods. They encounter this park ranger who, again, is supposed to be this sort of moral authority and the good guy. And then bad stuff starts happening. Do want to keep this vague just in case you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, but I do recommend this one. It was a lot of fun if you're into like it's sort of slasher leaning, but not quite. Happens in the woods. Another theme we see here is sort of the killer or the villain not being aware, a sort of Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, because the kid who's in a coma, he doesn't know that he is being used by these aliens or being controlled to harm his friends. So one that I think works for this is Cure from 1997. I think this really fits with the whole vibe of this episode in a lot of ways, because we have this detective who's investigating these murders, and the murders just don't make sense. The people who are committing the murders don't know why they have committed the murders. They're aware that they did it, but they don't know why. And there's this really odd character who is sort of influencing people to do these murders. The atmosphere and everything about it, sort of the plot and everything, is just similar enough to the pilot that I think it's a really good watch along with the pilot. Another is Malignant from 2021, which is, if you've seen it, you know why this fits into the sort of Jekyll and Hyde. The person who's killing doesn't know. If not, then I might have just spoiled everything. But it's a fun watch. And another that I wanted to mention is Dr. Jekyll from 2023. This stars Susie Izzard, and it is a Jekyll and Hyde story, but it's told very differently, and there's the female lead who is the Jekyll Hyde character. Dr. Jekyll, she has a caretaker come into her home. She's very wealthy, and the caretaker sort of unravels this mystery. It was really good, surprisingly good. So if you're into that sort of Jekyll and Hyde story, this was a good one. So next I wanted to talk about some tropes that we see in this episode and some movies that go along with those. One trope I didn't really want to get into, but I think is interesting, is that at the beginning of the pilot, it has the text, the following story is inspired by actual documented accounts, which is supposed to be about alien abduction and setting up the whole alien abduction themes of the show. But I just thought that was an interesting trope because we see that a lot in horror movies, or this is based on a true story. And I just wanted to point that out. I think that's kind of interesting. But one trope we do see in the pilot is, again, the sort of small towns protecting a secret trope. We have the sheriff, the doctor, they're all sort of protecting the secret. The obvious choice here is The Village from 2004, the M. Night movie, who most of us have probably seen. If you haven't seen it, it's best to go in not knowing much about it. Next is one that I watched pretty recently. It's called Dead and Buried from 1981. This also goes along with the authority figure who is sort of bad. I don't want to give away who in the movie this is because it would be a spoiler, but if you haven't seen this movie, it's a really crazy 80s movie where this town, these people who visit the town keep dying, but then they show up again, and the sheriff is trying to figure out what's going on, and then everything sort of unravels. It's really good. There are a lot of creepy moments. Some of it is very like zombie-esque in the way the deaths happen and stuff, because it's like groups of people killing the people who are visiting the town. I'm not sure why I had never seen this before, but I watched it recently, and it was really good. So that's Dead and Buried from, and Hot Fuzz from 2007, I think is good for this sort of town protecting a secret. If you've seen Hot Fuzz, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then I'm not sure what you're doing, but you should definitely watch Hot Fuzz because it's amazing. Edgar Wright, it's Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. It's really great. And again, throughout the course of the movie, we learn that the authority figures are bad, and this whole entire town is protecting a secret. Finally, of course, we get all of the sort of alien abduction tropes. Lights in the sky, marks on the abducted, electronics messing up, and we see this in Scully and Mulder's car. Loss of time, again, we see this with Scully and Mulder. All of these abduction tropes we're getting in the pilot. So I wanted to talk about some abduction movies that I think are cool. I also want to say that I plan on doing a really in-depth alien recommendation list and just talking about as many alien abduction movies and documentaries and stuff as I can, because I know that theme is going to come up a lot while watching through the X-Files. And rather than doing a new episode every time that is the plot of the episode, I would rather just do one big episode that can be a go-to about that. I'm going to mention a couple here that I really like. The first being Fire in the Sky from 1993. This is based on Travis Walton's book, The Walton Experience, which describes his abduction. It was written as nonfiction. This is a pretty famous abduction story. This movie is kind of a must-see for the genre. I think it's probably the most well-known abduction movie and story. It's pretty crazy if you don't know anything about it. And if you're interested in alien abductions at all, you should check this out. It's a terrifying movie. I remember seeing it as a kid, probably like junior high age, and bits and pieces on TV, and it just terrified me, and I would just not watch it. I watched it again for the first time probably in my late 80s, and it was still like, okay, yeah, this is pretty fucking scary. The thing about this movie that I think is most terrifying for me is that a lot of the stuff that happens while he's abducted and the scenes that they're showing don't make a lot of sense. And if you think about an alien from another planet, these other beings that we don't know anything about, like the stuff they do probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to us. So it gives a sort of authenticity to it that is terrifying. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but yeah, for me, Fire in the Sky, you should watch it. The next I want to talk about is The Forgotten from 2004. And this fits more in the thriller category than horror, but it's really fun and it's an interesting perspective on the take of the alien abduction. It focuses more on the parents who have lost children to abduction. And again, this has an aspect of the powers that be or the authorities sort of covering something up in a big secret. So I think it really fits well with the pilot. As far as vibes and styles that of movies that would fit the vibes and styles of the pilot, and I think Cure um, really fits in well here. Some others, Silence of the Lambs from 1991. I think the first scene we see of Scully in the office at the FBI is really reminiscent of Clarice and Silence of the Lambs. I think it's really hard to watch the pilot and not see the influence of Clarice from Silence of the Lambs in Scully and Scully's character and situation. I think Scully is always portrayed as more capable and confident than Clarice, maybe, but the parallels are definitely there. Another that I think fits the sort of styles and vibes, if you're looking at the pilot and you like the Oregon Northwestern feel of it, is Antlers from 2021. This is about a kid whose teacher notices that something's a little off, and then she sort of is trying to figure out what's going on with him, and kind of has the reverse of everything else we've been talking about, where the authority figure, in this case the teacher, is trying to figure out what's going on, and the kid is keeping the secret. But it's definitely got the whole woodsy Northwest vibes that I think we get from the pilot, which is really cool. And then The Fourth Kind from 2009. This is a movie that I don't personally really like, but it's an alien abduction movie. There's some found footage elements. It's set in Alaska, but it still, to me, sort of has the kind of rainy Oregon vibes to it that the pilot does. So I think it fits really well, and it goes along with a lot of the other themes and things that we're seeing in the pilot as far as abduction goes and stuff. Again, not my favorite abduction movie. I didn't really like all of the stylistic choices they made, but a lot of people do like this movie, and if you're looking for other stuff, then I think this is a good pick. So just to go over all the movies I mentioned and recommended here, there's Population 436 from 2006. There's Disturbing Behavior from 1998. There's The Ranger from 2018. There's Cure from 1997. Malignant from 2021. Dr. Jekyll from 2023. The Village from 2004. Dead and Buried from 1981, Hot Fuzz from 2007, Fire in the Sky from 1993, Forgotten from 2004, Silence of the Lambs from 1991, Antlers from 2021, The Fourth Kind from 2009. I think if you're only going to watch two of these movies, the best double feature that sort of gives the vibes of the pilot is going to be The Silence of the Lambs and Cure. They're both also from the 90s, so I think that goes along really well, but I think if you want to get a good sort of feel of the pilot, another great double feature would be Fire in the Sky and Cure. So thank you so much for listening. This has been Little Dead Aliens. My name is Ben. If you're looking to follow me online, I am on Blue Sky and Instagram, both at Little Dead Aliens. You can email me with any comments or concerns or questions at littledeadaliens@gmail.com. You can also check me out at the Glitterjaw website, which is glitterjaw.com. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you on the next episode.